Welcome back to Exposing the Hidden Agenda, the Dragon in Planned Parenthood, Part 3. In Part 2, we got a little bit more information into what organizations made up this Safe Sex Alliance. We saw that they had their beginning back in around 2007, 2008, and we are understanding that their goal was to ensure, number one, that there would not be any more abstinence only until marriage sexual education taught in the public schools. We also realized that their goal was to empower children, according to some school districts, as young as pre-K, to again have the ability to utilize condoms, get involved with sexual activity, and their parents could not even say no. We're going to go a little bit deeper to find out what these individuals are all about, because if we can unmask the agenda, if we can expose the agenda, if we can show you what the enemy is planning, then we know that you can avoid it. We say over and over again that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But how are you going to avoid something that you know nothing about? And this is why it's so important that we, again, expose the hidden agenda. It was decided, according to the history of these three organizations, then that the purpose of the project that they were undertaking would be to create a national dialogue about the future of sex education and to promote the institutionalization of comprehensive sexuality education in public schools. Again, this is a demonic endeavor, a demonic agenda. It has nothing to do with the well-being of our children, it has nothing to do with educating our children. It's all about indoctrinating our children. Why? Because Satan knows that if he can get our children involved with sexual activity at an early age, it actually corrupts their entire life. It gives them a totally different worldview. And what's so significant is it's all done in a manner that is opposed, or should I say, is in a state of rebellion against the will of God. And we know that, as we said earlier, that rebellion is nothing more but another form of witchcraft. All of this can be tied into so many individuals, but right now we're going to focus in on these organizations that call themselves the Safe Sex Alliance. Public schools were specifically chosen because they represent venues at which most young people can be reached. It's not by accident. Majority of our children, even in the church, go to public schools. And if you're going to change a culture, you must start with the children. And this is plain and simple. I'm pretty sure we can all see that. I'm from North Carolina, and you see on the screen, Learn North Carolina, K-12 teaching and learning from the UNC School of Education. Important announcement about online courses and Learn Inc. But in the bottom of the screen, you see examples of resources when it comes to our children learning in North Carolina about sexual issues. And lo and behold, you see Advocates for Youth, and you also see Seekers. These are two of the three organizations that make up that Safe Sex Alliance. Why is this so important? Because North Carolina is not the only state that now is embracing and now that taking part in this endeavor. What's so sad, because most people are not aware of the hidden agenda. They assume that everything is above board. They assume that what's being done is for the good of the children. But again, those who walk in light, when you start connecting the dots, you understand this is not only not good for the children, it's actually corrupting them. How is folks going to be implemented? I'm glad you asked. Number one, serving as the sex education arm of the Kinsey Institute, Seekers converts the Keynesian ideology into sex education programs. Now, one thing about they're bold, but most people don't understand, even know about the Keynesian Institute. They don't know about the Keynesian ideology, but they're saying that they're taking that ideology, and remember now, as a review, he says that there's no form of sexual activity that should be considered wrong. There's no form of sexual activity that should be considered abnormal. Anything goes, whether it be adult or child, anything goes. This is his ideology. So they're taking that ideology, they're forming it into these educational programs, and now Planned Parenthood, in partnership with Seekers, then moves these model programs into the American classroom. Why is our talk entitled The Dragon in Planned Parenthood? Because you're seeing now the union of demonic forces with a organization that again is in league with corrupting our children. It is a demonic organization. Many people don't know about this, but it's time that we now expose the truth. This educative process now has invaded our culture, not only in the world perspective, but also in Christian schools. Listen to this clip.
I had a letter from a lady that watches Life Talk, and she says, "Dear Mr. Crutcher, why aren't you exposing sex education in Catholic and Christian schools? No one can die. It's a root cause of abortion." And she's right. And we have talked about this. She may be a fairly new subscriber or something, but we've talked about this in the past. And there's two things that are happening with Christian schools as it regards this issue that I think we need to be aware of. And these are both things that, again, we've talked about extensively in the past. One of them is that some Christian schools, and even Catholic schools, and I'll give you an example of this in a minute, are getting sucked into letting Planned Parenthood come in and conduct their condoms on bananas. Well, the whole thing. And if you want to see how outrageous this gets to be, a few years back, I was asked to do a speech for a group down in Florida. And when I get there, they're all up in arms about something that's happened recently there. That it's an ongoing problem, and they brought me up to date on it. First off, the local bishop of their diocese had been given Planned Parenthood's Man of the Year award and had gone and accepted it. But one of the reasons that he would get given this, they had allowed, the diocese there had allowed Planned Parenthood to come in and put on their sex education. They became the one that the diocese turned over for all their Catholic schools their sex education to. So Planned Parenthood to come in. Well, now you have all these Catholic parents that are saying, I don't want my child in that. The bishop ruled that the Catholic parents could not opt their children out of the Planned Parenthood sex education. Huh. These were Catholic parents, had their children in a Catholic school, who had to take them out of that school and put them in a public school because the public school would allow them to opt out of the Planned Parenthood sex education. So Planned Parenthood is going into a public school here, a private Catholic school over here, the same people, and the Catholic school would not allow them to opt out of it, but the public school would. I mean, this is the sort of things that are going on at Christian schools all over the country, not just Catholic schools. Mm-hmm. All kinds of Christian schools are doing these exact same things.
That video showed the epitome of people in darkness. Why in the world would individuals who are supposed to know better allow Planned Parenthood to come within a Christian school in a Christian environment and corrupt their children? Why would they even go as far as not allowing the parents to opt their children out? And let me say something as a warning. A lot of these school systems are now realizing a lot of parents are being made aware of this so-called comprehensive sex education curriculum. They are being made aware of how corruptive it is, and so they are opting to pull their children out. So what the school systems have begun to do now, instead of calling it sex education, now they're now calling it health education, and by relabeling it as health education, it prevents their children from being pulled out. Again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against demonic forces. This is a satanic agenda to corrupt our children. We have to be as wise as serpents as well as gentle as doves. I'm going to submit to you that we need to, as parents and as church leaders, make sure that we start programs that will empower parents to empower their children. We should, as church leaders, make sure that we expose all of this hidden agenda so that the parents will not allow their kids to be unnecessarily exposed to ideology that is really demonic. I want to go a little bit deeper, however, to show you what Planned Parenthood is all about. Obviously, at this point, I'm sure you can agree with me, even if we did not have the abortion as an issue, just by the mere fact that Planned Parenthood is being used as a conduit to expose the Keynesian theory to our children should be bad enough. But there is, again, an agenda even with that, because Planned Parenthood goal is to make sure they never stop performing abortions. And in order for them to make sure that never happens, they have to make sure that our kids are getting involved with sexual activity way before they can handle it, way before they know the danger. But God says no weapon formed against us will prosper, but my brothers and sisters, we must use that weapon. Planned Parenthood unmasked masturbation. Now I know this is a subject that we say little about in the church, but I ask people a very serious question. What sin should not be talked about? What sin should not be addressed in the church? Should we ignore this? Or since it is a sin, should we really bring it to the forefront? Because remember, again, the Bible says all manner of sin is done outside the body, but that which is sexual, that which is fornicative, is done against the body. Should we not make this a priority? Should we not warn our young people of how Satan can use this activity to not only destroy them, not only corrupt them, but what's so serious, it leads to other deeper and darker demonic activity. Planned Parenthood has a different attitude about it. They actually support it. They actually encourage it. I actually have literature that I found that they are involved with that introduces this activity to kids as young as 4 years old. Again, I want you all to understand, remember the Keynesian ideology, which says that there's nothing unnatural, nothing abnormal, nothing bad, anything goes. And so no matter how crazy it may sound, no matter how corrupt it may be, again, this is what Planned Parenthood is using. Again, this is what they are bringing to our school systems, and our school systems are welcoming them then to come in and corrupt our children. They actually have tutorials on the internet, and our kids are told, if you want to learn information about sexuality, go to these Planned Parenthood tutorials. In all actuality, I'm going to be real honest with you, what I'm showing you is mild. It's actually a lot more sinister, actually a lot more depraved. I'm just not able to show it on TV because, again, many people would not be able to handle it. But think about this. If it's so bad and so terrible that I cannot show it on TV, why is it available to our children? Why can they go to it freely, and why are they encouraged to go to it? Again, because the devil wants to kill, steal, and destroy. Without a doubt, you see why I am so concerned and why I am so fired up against this organization called Planned Parenthood. Number one, they can be involved in an abnormal sexual pleasure and still be abstinent. That's not true. They're told, again, that's like being a virgin. That's not true. See, God calls us to purity. God calls us to self-discipline. The people who are promoting this know that it's like a gateway. Like cigarettes is the gateway to marijuana. Marijuana is the gateway to heavier drugs. Masturbation is the gateway to more heavy and more demonic sexual activity. As a matter of fact, people have become addicted to it. Why? Because they've been told by organizations like this that it's natural and normal. Planned Parenthood is a process or an organization that is involved with indoctrination. And if you understand what they are all about, how in the world can we sit back and do nothing? Planned Parenthood, Southwestern Oregon, Confidential Teen Services, they are focused on separating our children from their parents. And I make the statement that when my son was a teenager, I did not trust him. And I made that statement around some of his friends. And they kind of got bent out of shape because they said, why won't you trust your son? And I said, it's not that I don't trust him as a person. I don't trust a teenager. A teenager is not to be trusted because they are not capable of making the right decision. Their brain has not been fully developed. But when you introduce these types of activities, when you start introducing this type of ideology to teenagers, you can mess them up. And that's what the devil's all about. That's what his goal is, to kill, steal, and destroy. But Planned Parenthood also knows that by getting involved with this type of exposure, getting involved with this type of indoctrination, number one, they'll never run out of money because they're going to always be involved with what they call sexual health. But more importantly, there's a more demonic aspect involved, and we'll be getting into that as we go further into our discussion about the dragon and Planned Parenthood. I'm going to show you another clip real quickly because you'll see very clearly how Planned Parenthood manipulates this thing called sexuality, and their whole goal is to get our kids caught up in something that they cannot handle. Listen to this clip.
We see Planned Parenthood doing this in our own neighborhood. Every year they run an event aimed at local children.
They're not here to do anything kind and nice and sweet to these children. They're here to subvert them, to subject them to information that they're not emotionally ready for, and to break down their innocence and their ability to resist being involved in sexual activity. They're using a book that's called It's Perfectly Normal, and it has over 80 pictures of nude characters engaged in sexual activity.
We believe that we're giving kids information that they may need right now, but we're pretty sure they're going to need it later.
Okay.
Which is why we give out the now and later candies. I don't know if you know about that. And each room has a theme, by the way. We have one room up there with tents in it.
Oh, okay.
It has a camping theme. We have another room that has some mattresses on the floor. We're having a slumber party.
Oh, wow.
That's the 5th grade girls, which is real appropriate for that age.
Sure.
We asked the Planned Parenthood director what she thought of abstinence-only education.
So those kids are getting fear-based, abstinence only till marriage messages.
A fear-based, abstinence only until marriage curriculum is what Planned Parenthood categorizes the right teaching. Fear-based. The fear should be in being disobedient. The fear should be in being involved with sin. The fear should be in embracing an activity that was obviously born of Satan himself, but yet they call evil good and good evil. Planned Parenthood, as you can see, is an organization that is actually in place to change the sexual moral standards of our culture. Planned Parenthood is being used again by the Safe Sex Alliance, is being used by Satan himself to be the conduit of bringing the wrong information to our children. I believe in my heart if more parents knew about this, they would speak against it. But again, God says my people, as well as others, are indeed destroyed for the lack of knowledge. I want to show you another clip very quickly because I want to show you what Planned Parenthood, says about the right message. Look at this clip.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Planned Parenthood says safe is sexy.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Every day you and I are faced with about 1 million different opportunities to make a choice. Like I choose to eat organic vegetables, or I choose to stop at a red light, or I choose to root for the Giants and not those bush leaguers from Los Angeles. What I'm saying is, we all need to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves, and gather our own information. Do you hear that? That sounds like the theme song from the streets of San Francisco. Michael Douglas was really great in that show, and Carl Malden, but I digress. That's my cue.
So, as I was saying, kids, the only way to prevent pregnancy is to practice abstinence.
But mister, we learned at school that there are other ways to practice safe sex and protect ourselves.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, there's lots of different contraceptive devices. You got your condoms, you got your birth control pills.
Phew, those are instruments from the devil's toolbox. If you're so smart, Miss Smarty Smartpants, what are you going to do about STDs? You do know what STDs are, don't ya?
Sure, but I don't plan on getting a sexually transmitted disease.
Nobody does.
What do you think you're doing here?
Well, I'm just telling these kids the truth.
The only truth here is that you're ugly and your mama dresses you funny. It looks like it's time to take out the trash.
We're almost out of time, but I wanted you to see how Planned Parenthood gave the impression that the man that was speaking the truth, the man that was dealing with abstinence, was a monster, was someone, a villain. They actually presented their issue or their agenda as being right and proper, and the right agenda as being wrong. Again, calling good evil and evil good. This has a detrimental effect on our children when they see stuff like this. Anyway, we are again out of time. We're glad you have joined us in part 3 of The Dragon and Planned Parenthood. We encourage you to join us for part 4. We'll go even deeper, and we're going to expose even more of this hidden agenda, because we believe God's people should be enlightened before the truth, as He has said in His Word, will set you free. But not only set you free, it will keep you free. May God bless you this day forward.